Hi, I'm Davia, and welcome back to my hobby quest where I am trying a different hobby, creative hobby, every single month to see what creative juices get flowing in me, and then maybe I can find a new passion or something. So, we're gonna get into my very first month recap. So, for January, I did crochet, and in this video, we're going to get into all the things that you need to know about my month of crocheting, how it went, what I liked, didn't like, the materials that I used, the resources that I used, and what I learned about myself along the way. So we're gonna get into all of this, and I have my notes here. So if you see me looking down, I am reading my notes because I actually ended up doing an extensive journal entry, surprisingly, after. And I actually think this will be part of my process because it was really nice and helpful to see everything that I learned about crocheting in this month. So I'm gonna do this every month at the end to recap and see what I learned. Number one, why I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this because with crochet, you can get exactly what you need. So if you're the type of person who needs a quick dopamine fix, then you can knock out a quick project. There's some things like the little hearts that I made that only take like 2 minutes. So if you just want to do something just to get it done and be proud of yourself and excited, you can do that. If you need a longer project because you need something to do to fulfill your time, and you just kind of want that slow, steady, big win, then you can crochet something that takes a lot longer, maybe like a clothing piece or a big amigurumi, like stuffed animal type of thing. So there's options for whatever your needs are. And I loved that about this. In the beginning, I did need very fast wins so that I can give myself a confidence boost. Like, okay, this isn't too bad. I can do this. And when I tried to move on to the bigger projects in the very beginning, like week 1, I got discouraged real fast. So I went back to small wins. And once I got really comfortable, then I tried to move up to a longer project that was very beginner friendly. And we'll get into exactly what I did in the order I did everything in later. So if you think you are scared to try to jump right in, I'll tell you what steps I took and what worked for me. But that is one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this. Also, the motions of crocheting are really repetitive and relaxing. You kind of get into this flow state, especially after you get comfortable and get past the initial stage of being uncomfortable, doing something new, and working through the kinks of you're using the right amount of what's the word? Not pressure, but if you hold the yarn too tight or if you hold it too loose, then it's going to be really challenging in the beginning. So once you find your flow, then it feels really relaxing and repetitive. Lastly, it's not a super expensive hobby. If you just buy what you need, then it's not expensive. I'm gonna go over the materials that I think were essential for me, but I did initially buy way too much stuff. And I am laughing at myself now because I have probably 7 skeins of untouched yarn that I did not touch and did not need. So I purchased way more than I needed to. You can find your first project and buy 1 skein of yarn and just do that. And 1 hook. You can, unless you buy the kit that I'm gonna show you, but yeah, you don't need to get crazy with it. So this can be a very inexpensive hobby if you know what to do in the beginning and then later it might become a little more expensive if you start picking up longer projects, but yeah. So that's what I loved about crochet. Number 2, cons or drawbacks. My con for crochet is that storage is a little tricky with yarn because yarn is big, it takes up space, and I live in a studio apartment. I do not have space. So my yarn sat in a plastic bag, the bag that I got it in, like the bag from Michael's, and it stayed there on my floor the whole month. So what I did end up doing is switching the skein that I was using actively to like a big purse that I had, and I would store it in there so I can take it with me if I was going somewhere. Like I went to the hospital with my friend and I just put that bag on and was crocheting in the hospital. So that made it a little easier to like take around with me because you could just put it in a big bag that looks cute to carry around. But as far as at home, if you don't have a lot of storage space, this can be tricky. I wouldn't say don't try crochet just because of storage, because again, I tried it and I live in a very small apartment in Los Angeles. So you can do it, just maybe think of storage options like getting a really cute little storage bin or a craft cart that you can put your yarn in. And the biggest tip for this, which I briefly touched on in the last point, is I bought way too much yarn to begin with. If you start with what you need, you will likely not need a bunch of storage space. If I just bought one skein at a time, by the time I finished the project that was using that, then I would be ready for more yarn and would only have a tiny ball of yarn left of the other color to find somewhere to store it. So it's not that bad. It was just tough for me because I had bundles of extra yarn that I didn't touch. So that would be my drawback, is just storage for me. Number 3, where I started. My very first project that I did was a hand knitted blanket. So this was my first big win, confidence boost. And I think this is a great place to start, especially if you do like me, where you order things on Amazon. So I ordered a like starter kit on Amazon, and while I was waiting for it to come, I was a little antsy and I wanted to get started. I didn't want to wait 2 days. So what I did was I went to Michael's, got 2 skeins of the biggest size blanket yarn, and started hand crocheting. So I found a video, I'll post it, and it was super easy to follow. I got that blanket done in, I think, an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I was super proud of myself afterwards. I gifted it to somebody who has a baby, because with 2 skeins of yarn, you can't make a huge blanket, because this jumbo yarn, it seems like it's huge, but when you're crocheting, then it takes up a lot of yarn. So with 2 of them, which cost me about $25, I was able to make a blanket big enough for a baby. So really cute baby shower gift if you need a quick gift. Like I said, done in an hour and some change, only $25. And yeah, that's where I started. After that, I got a little bit too confident. So don't let your confidence boost from winning the first win blow your head up, because after that, I wanted to start crocheting clothes. So I went and found a bunch of things that I wanted to make, like these beautiful Chenda DIY pieces. And that is why I bought too much yarn, because that's what I thought I was going to make first. And once I got home and got the yarn, I was ready to go. And that is when I quickly realized I was not ready to try to crochet a top or skirt. So that stuff went back in the bag. I went back to Michael's and got some size 6 yarn to crochet an amigurumi first. So before I started the amigurumi, I actually did some cute little projects like these little hearts. I tried to do a bookmark that I did not post up here because it was an epic fail. And I started with just learning the basics. So I'd watch a video that just shows you the basics, the different types of stitches for you to practice, like a magic ring, a single crochet, double crochet, chain stitch. These things I didn't understand what they meant. So yeah, start with that when you get your kit that has the small size 4 yarn in it. That yarn is like super cheap. That comes in the kit that I'm going to show you later. So if you do buy that, then start with that yarn to just mess around with it. If you don't buy the kit, then just go buy some size 4 yarn and a 3.5 or 4.5 millimeter hook, and just work on different types of stitches and small, easy, beginner-friendly projects like the ones that I have shown. So I started there, had a lot of fails, then finally started getting the hang of it and getting some wins. Once I did a good heart, then I felt confident, and I think it took 3 or 4 tries to get the heart good, and it was very frustrating. I was very discouraged, but perseverance. And it really helps that I know that I'm doing this project for the whole month. So I can't give up because I have to do this every day for the whole month, and I'm in week 1. So that gave me the extra confidence I needed. Like, I have to see this through, you know, even if I suck the whole time, it's fine. At least I tried it. But I didn't suck the whole time. After the first week, I got much better. And then I was confident to start my amigurumi bunny. And that's what I did. After I completed that, which did take me a long time, and there was some mistakes, then I moved on to this beautiful dino. And instead of a mini dino, I did a more like jumbo sized dino. So I followed this video and used size 6 yarn with a size 6 hook, 6 millimeter hook with size 6 jumbo, like fluffy yarn. And it made my dinosaur 8.5 or 9.5 inches tall. So a nice size plushie. And yeah, I was really happy with both of my amigurumi projects. So happy that I could just keep crocheting amigurumi. If I didn't have to do a new hobby each month, I would have kept going with the plushies. That is where I started as far as what type of projects and where I think it would be best if you wanted to get started. Number 4, the materials that I used to get started. So like I've been mentioning, I bought this kit on Amazon, and this had pretty much all the essentials for amigurumi. So it had hooks up to size 6, which was the largest. You don't need larger unless you want to make really like bigger plushies, but this was fine for now. You don't have to get anything bigger than this for now. It also came with stitch markers, sewing needles. What else was in there? Eyes, safety eyes, and the stuffing, as well as a few different colors of yarn to start with. These, like I said, were the small size 4 yarn. I only used it for practicing the little projects before. I didn't actually use this yarn to make any plushies. It also comes with directions on how to make a little octopus family. And as a beginner with no understanding of stitches, this book was useless. So I didn't use it, and I don't think I will, even though I would probably be able to understand it now. You can ignore that book unless you really want to try to figure it out. I'm also a visual learner. So if you do learn better from reading and like seeing pictures and reading text, maybe this will be useful for you. For me, it was like reading another language. So I like tossed it to the side and haven't touched it since. This kit was super useful for me. I used it the entire time and I highly recommend. But if you don't want to start with amigurumi, then you might feel like all these things are unnecessary. You can pick your first project, which, like I said, hopefully you pick something that's really easy. If you start with the baby blanket with the hand crocheting, then you only need 2 skeins of yarn. That's it, no hook. Or you can buy more if you want to make a big blanket. I've seen a video where she used, I think, 6, it was like 6 to 10, I can't remember, skeins of yarn. But keep in mind, those super fluffy jumbo, like the big ones, are pretty expensive. Those are, I believe, $12.99 at Michael's. So if you buy more than 2, you're getting into a price range that is up to you, but to me was too much for one project. So that's why I say baby blanket, 2 skeins, still in the 20s. I feel like that's reasonable. But if you start with small projects like the little hearts and stuff and you don't buy the kit, then just go buy some size 4 yarn that you can just practice with. It should be pretty cheap. I don't know exactly how much because I didn't buy any of this yarn myself at Michael's, but when I was looking, I feel like the price range for that is probably $3 to $5. So not bad. And then for that size, it usually tells you what hook size on the back of the yarn that you should use. For size 4, I was using 3.5 or 4.5 hook. So a hook in between there. Other than that, if you decide to do amigurumi, but you don't want to buy this kit, then choose your project. If you start with what I started with, this bunny by Sophie, then you can get 1 skein of yarn, whatever color, and size 6 millimeter hook. That's it. You don't need to buy anything else up front. You are gonna need stuffing and eyes. And I also used a little bit of the size 4 yarn for the nose. So maybe if you bought that first to practice with, get a color that will work for the nose, whatever color you want. But aside from that, you don't really have to buy that much. So materials to begin with, very minimal. I do recommend also getting a needle, a plastic sewing needle. That way you can hide your yarn afterwards. You don't have to do a ton of sewing, especially for the bunny. It's a low sew project. But if you do the dino, then you are gonna need this needle. And as far as a stitch marker, you don't have to buy stitch markers. You can use a hairpin or something like that. That's just gonna help you know your place, like where to stop. You can watch videos on this when you watch like beginner materials needed videos. They'll give you some ideas. But if you have like a hairpin or a safety pin, you can use that. If you buy the kit, it has stitch markers in it, then you have everything you need in the kit. So that's the materials. Number 5, resources I used. I did everything on YouTube. So I was watching all the YouTube videos. For YouTube, it's great to support other creators. So this was no problem for me to sit there and watch hours of people's videos, like Amazing-ish Grace for entertainment before I got my supplies. She was very inspiring and entertaining. She's a character to watch. And this is probably why I thought I was gonna start with clothes, because she crochets beautiful outfits and clothing pieces. But once I started going into learning mode, then I showed you a few. Sophie, I think it's Teeny, and Mary Makes were the 2 projects that I completed and were very happy with the videos. They walk you through every single step. You can even use this feature on YouTube where you go to settings and you can slow the video down if you need it to be slower. I did that for the bunny for sure. Even though they already move slow, sometimes you really need to just see it in like slow motion. So that's what I did for those 2. And like I said before, videos that I want to get into eventually is Chenda DIY. Her videos look very easy to follow as well, but I was not ready as far as skills go for her videos when I first started. So those are the resources that I used and want to use. Number 6 is tips and tricks that I learned that I think will be helpful for you. I wrote quite a bit down, so I'm gonna be looking at my notes for this one. The main tip is to relax. I was really tense at first, and being tense was making my yarn tension really tight, which was making my stitches really tight. And with the stitches being tight, it was hard to get my hook into the stitch and even to see the stitch. So you want to loosen up and just relax. If you feel yourself getting really tense, then just take a deep breath and relax. Find your tension, which is what the small beginner projects like the heart did for me. It helped me find my tension. Some people start really loose and some people start really tense. So try to find that middle ground where the yarn is flowing very freely and you're not having to really dig your hook in to your stitch because it's too tight. So relax, take a breath. That's the first tip. My next tip is when I got to the point where I was working on these slightly larger projects like the amigurumi, then I would use a small hook. So I was using the 6mm hook to crochet with. I would use a 4.5mm hook to count my stitches. So I would stick it into each stitch to count and make sure I had the correct number of stitches at the end of the row before I moved on if I was unsure. And sometimes I felt like I was sure, but I would count anyways, and then I would be off. And if you're off even by 1, it throws off the whole thing. So make sure you count your stitches if you're not sure. And my next tip, please use a stitch marker, especially for these amigurumi pieces that I showed you, the bunny and the dinosaur. Honestly, all your projects, you really want to use a stitch marker. It's really tedious and annoying to take it out and put it back in every single row, but as soon as you don't do it, then you get lost and you don't know if you have the right number, and it's just disaster. So use your stitch marker. Another tip, count out loud if you need to in the beginning. That was really helpful for me, especially if you're in a place with some distraction. It's really helpful to just count each time you make a stitch, because in your head, you tend to lose count, and then you either have to start that row over or just pray that you make it to the end with the correct amount of stitches. So I liked to count out loud. And to go along with that tip, it's just better to, especially in the beginning, be in a quiet place. If you have kids and stuff and they're running around screaming, like, I'm sure you can still do it. Just what I mean is don't have a bunch of other distractions, like trying to watch TV is a no in the beginning. If you're a beginner, please don't. When you see the other people, like the entertainment people doing it, they're talking on the phone, they're talking to the camera, they're at a coffee shop watching Netflix, and it seems like it's something you can do like without looking. It's not in the beginning. So don't have any distractions. Don't try to watch TV. Just be present with your yarn and focus. If there's other noise in the background, as long as they are not interacting with you and talking to you directly, then you're fine. But if somebody starts trying to talk to you, then keep your number in your head or write it down so you know where you're at, because it's very hard to keep count. That's why I count out loud. Don't be afraid to frog your work. Frogging is pulling it apart, and it seems very depressing to do, but it's also kind of satisfying that you can just pull it and it just undoes the whole thing very quickly. Whereas with some other crafts, you have to start over if you mess up. Not with crochet, you just pull the yarn and it undoes itself. So don't be afraid to frog your work if you need to. If you really mess up on a row, and you need to start over, that's fine. But to go along with that tip, don't be a perfectionist and over frog your work. Don't do it so much that you never finish a project. A tip that I learned from one of the YouTube creators was just complete something. So just do your best, complete it. Even if it's terrible, it's fine. If you just keep frogging it and never complete something, then it's going to be very discouraging, and you might have a hard time learning from your mistakes, versus if you complete it. Like, I completed the bunny, even though I made mistakes. I lost count. Some of my rows, I just was like, okay, it's probably fine. It's just one stitch off. And I still completed it. It came out fine. But now I know the difference. Like, I know what looks wrong with it based off of what rows I did not complete correctly. And I could have frogged it and started over, but then I never would have finished this project. So I'm really glad that I took that advice and just completed it despite the mistakes, because it still looks good. And the next time I make it, I will know what to do differently, which is why I got pretty good at the dino, because I made 3 of these. So by the third one, I was really comfortable with it, much faster, and didn't make as many mistakes as the first and the second one. Which the second one, I did frog a lot. Anytime I messed up, I frogged the second one, because I was making it for somebody who paid. So I wanted to make sure it was perfect. But the first one I made mistakes, and that's okay. So that's why my first couple projects I gave away, because they were just for practice. After that, people started wanting to pay for them. Then I got a little more serious in making sure every single row was perfect. So in the beginning, just have the intention of completing a project, and if it's not perfect, that's totally fine. It's not a big deal, as long as you're not trying to sell your first project. I don't recommend selling your first project. And lastly, number 7, what did I learn about myself through my experience with crochet? I learned that I have very high expectations of my learning capabilities. I believe that I am a super fast learner. I can pick anything up so fast. So it was humbling. It was, because I did not pick this up as fast as I thought I would. I thought I would be amazing at crochet in 1 week. And that was probably due to that confidence boost that I got with that hand crocheted blanket. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was not bad. And this was my very, very first time trying crochet. So I thought, well, if that was my first one, then anything after this is gonna be even better. I'm gonna be a pro after a week. No, honey. Not the case. After 2 failed bookmarks, like 2 or 3 failed hearts, I was very discouraged, and I don't recommend that you be discouraged. That's why I'm telling you this, because you can have expectations that you're gonna get good at something, but not in a week. Not when it takes people years to be amazing at something and you just picked it up. So that's what I learned about myself, that I do have very high expectations and a little bit of perfectionism. So it was good to be humbled and to give me a chance to let my ego go and just be present with the process, because like any new journey you're on, it is a process. So that's the first thing that I learned. After completing the amigurumis, then I realized that I enjoyed the satisfaction of completing a larger project than the smaller ones. Even though when I completed my first decent looking heart, I was very happy. I wasn't as happy as I was when I completed my first amigurumi. I felt on top of the world. I was so excited. I showed everybody. I posted it on social media. I wanted to keep it so bad, but I made it for my niece. So I mailed it right away. But I was so proud of my first completed amigurumi because it took longer and it took more work. So for me personally, the longer projects in the delayed satisfaction was a stronger feeling for me than the quick satisfaction of a short project where you get that quick dopamine hit in a few minutes or an hour. So yeah, that's me, what I learned about myself. I didn't know that I was a slow satisfaction or gratification type of person, but now I know. And lastly, the other thing that I learned about myself is how happy it makes me to make other people happy. When I sent my amigurumi pieces to people, I didn't keep any, so I don't have any to show for myself. The first two that I was practicing on, I gave away. And then I got 2 orders on Instagram after that of people that wanted to buy them for their children. And that's 4 amigurumi pieces to 4 different children and the blanket that I made for the baby. So I got to see the sweetest pictures and videos of these kids receiving their new friend. And it was so heartwarming, like absolutely beautiful. And I didn't know that I would love that so much, but it made me so happy when I would watch these videos or see the pictures of the kid like snuggling their babies. So yeah, I didn't know. Now I know that bringing joy to other people makes me extremely happy. So I learned that from crochet, and maybe I will continue to do that just for that joy. But we have to move on to the next month, which is drawing, and I'm going to give you a recap on that soon. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm really hoping that it brings you some inspiration to start. And if you learned enough about crochet that you decide it's not for you, no worries. There is something for you out there. You don't have to try every single thing that's out there, but it also is a good idea to try many things to find what you enjoy the most. And like I said, the things that I learned about myself with crochet, I don't know if I would have learned about myself with the other things that I'm doing. So this brought me so much joy. It was so fun, and I'm really proud of myself. So yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Comment below if you are gonna try crochet out and why you want to. What stood out about this video to make you want to start crocheting. And we'll see you in the next video about my experience with drawing. Bye.